Welcome, lovely viewers, to Personnel Record 4. I am Obelisk of Malice, here to report on my knowledge. I do apologize for my extended absence up until today. There really aren't any excuses, I simply had better things to do. I appreciate your patience, as there will be more coming from me. I am not done creating these records. Anyway, onto the actual record. Today's lineup is a bit off, as they're not people, but rather places. There are large topics to cover with little experimentation involved thus far, so they're here so I can talk about them. But they're not exactly report-worthy in terms of an experiment. This personnel record I am predicting will be shorter, since I have less information generally on two of the topics. But I'll do my best to fully report on them. Goodness, I need a change to the names of these. I hope you enjoy. On to the reports. Far off in an unmapped region of space, inside of an unnamed solar system, lives a largely unnamed planet. That is our first topic of discussion for today. I'll be calling this planet Carl, mainly because if I make up some complicated and fancy name, I might just die repeating it over and over. So bear with me, dear viewers, as we go over this mystically mysterious place. Why do I call it mysterious? Well, that is a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked. On the planet are the ruins of a society I feel is most likely largely unknown by the rest of known society, if I shall say so. I discovered no one else in or around Carl, not even any signals. Getting back on track, the ruins of the society are large skyscraping buildings that contain halls and labyrinths reminiscent of labyrinths to me, with random dead ends, weird little pockets of rooms, and circular paths in random areas. Or perhaps instead of a labyrinth, I suppose it would be more accurate to describe these buildings as modern hives? Mid-century hives? I don't know. They had no normal sense of floors or rooms, with low walls just barely separating different sections and holes that lead directly up with simple ramps, with holes that leave each floor, quote-unquote, largely open to the others. There are buildings that appear to be meant for long-term living, and buildings that seem to be designed for the young, with rounded edges and a stark lack of corners, as well as buildings that are simply wide-open areas filled with what I can only describe as cubicles for work. The strangest of all of them, though, are the buildings with no directly logical purpose. At first, I had thought they were just temples devoted to some sort of god, but strangely, there were no statues, no altars, no offerings, and no pictures. Only bare buildings filled with weaponry and large double stone doors in each one of these buildings, which are placed exactly 1,000 miles from each other, all over the entirety of poor Carl. They do not change over continents in design or structure, where I assume there would be different cultures. They do not change with different surroundings like mountains or being placed by the ocean, where there are vastly different materials more widely available. They are all made from stone, placed deep in the ground if necessary. I even found a few within the large oceans of Carl, solidly attached to the ocean floor with tunnels seemingly leading down to the core of Carl, barely affected by the rough waves. On top of this, the language inside of the temples are different from the language I saw in the rest of the society, written in more jagged letters to describe them best, with a completely different sentence structure. I'm still working with my specialist to decipher it. The only thing we can really assume is that there is some sort of god the people think is held down there, either trapped or sleeping, I suppose. It's really hard to tell. And I understand I am laying the strange aspects of this world on thick, but there's also something else I feel I must mention. The buildings, the streets, the temples, everything is left as though it had been abandoned partially throughout the day, with food left out, papers stacked neatly on desks, and toys strewn across floors. These items have not seemed to age one bit, not even molded over the time I assume it has been left to rot. Not even any sign of destruction, which I feel would follow with the end of such a vast and obviously technologically advanced society. There is no vegetation growth either. The buildings are pristine and sturdy, with no vines, no trees, no weeds growing anywhere. Well, of course, there was vegetation, but it all seemed perfectly pruned and well kept. There were no animals, not even bacteria from what I saw, though I will have to do a bit more investigation. Though strangely, the air there was oxygen, perfectly breathable. This was all land, and so my next course of action for when I go back is to explore the ocean for more answers. I do hope to find out what happened here, and to figure out eventually how to open those stone doors. There are secrets here I will discover, and maybe I'll share a few with all of you. You know, if I'm feeling nice. On to the next planet. Have you, yes you, dear viewer, ever imagined a forest so large it could rival oceans? Have you ever considered the implications of inhabiting such a space, or perhaps conquering it? My discoveries within the deep expansive forests of the planet GZ240 could rival any of my previous entries, though in this one I simply wanted to go over the forest itself along with its most prominent inhabitants. GZ240 is a larger planet covered in forests and lakes with minimal sentient life. The trees are taller than any building I've witnessed before on any planet. The fungi are equally as large, and the grass is taller than I am, though my assistants say it's not that much harder to be taller than I am. Those bastards. There are sections of the forest where the trees are shorter, where the vegetation thins, and you have a chance of glimpsing the sky, but the rest of the forest is deeper and often darker than any ocean you are thinking of. There are also animals larger than the imagination could create. Predators with the luminescence often seen in deep marine animals, planets with the properties to lure in prey and consume them for much needed nutrients. Prey animals here are often more dangerous than the predators, as they usually have intense poison that could cause the burliest Goract to drop dead within a few seconds. Prey animals also have the instincts of the earth moose, essentially a roided up interschooler with hooves to kill. Or emotional problems, whichever you prefer, I really don't care. Except that these creatures have spikes, you know, the sharp, pointy, stabby things that will stab you to death? Yes, those, exactly what you're probably thinking of. They have these spikes, teeth to rip, claws to tear, and eyes that see nothing but absolute fear. Hey, that rhymed. Was it on purpose? Was it not? You will never know. I will never tell you, but that is awesome. I feel there can't be an apex predator here. It's rather too competitive. If there were such a thing, it'd probably get one-upped by something more dangerous eventually. Pretty quickly, actually, due to what I've seen so far on this planet. On that topic of discussion, though, I discovered a species here that I feel has the potential to gaining sentience, or rather intelligence, if that is what you prefer, the term you prefer. They are reminiscent of snakes, often having large fins capable of producing light to blind the dark accustomed creatures that hunt them. I suppose you could call them cats or wolves, to give you a reference of what to think of, but nothing quite describes them, as there hasn't been much classification on this planet. It's rather too dangerous to explore deeply until we have technology, more advanced technology that is, to explore. The snakes I was speaking of, though, seem to roost high up in the trees, staying in large groups. They hunt in pairs or trios, and I've yet to see one of them alone. They also seem to have venom of sorts, at least most of them do, despite largely eating fruits and small animals that I have yet to record venom inside of. And there are a few different tribes, per se, of the snakes I've seen so far. Ones that are mostly green/blue. They're kind of like Perry the platypus, that in-between color, I suppose, with smaller fangs and what seems to be weaker venom. I haven't allowed them to bite me, to tell, as that would be dangerous, and I do not recommend it. But from what I've seen from their hunting, they tend to go after smaller animals, unlike their larger, more venomous counterparts. as this tribe lives in a region with prey animals with less poison than the other areas. They also have larger fins that go down continuously over their entire bodies, and one of the tribe does have a fake head at the end of their tails. The second tribe I had seen were more like vipers. They stay in smaller groups, though all of them stay in the same large vicinity as each other. A bit like the territory of wolves. They as wolves are, they are far more territorial, and it is quite terrifying to be in their space as their scents are so strong. Even I have half a mind to stay far away. They mark the edges of their territories. It's gross. It is gross. You can say it's gross. It's gross. They also have large hoods with spots on the back that resembles eyes. Something I've seen in quite a lot of prey animals evolved to scare away predators. I'm not too sure how well that works here, though, as things don't seem to care if what they attack is bigger than they are. Eat or be eaten, I suppose. The third tribe I most closely documented actually largely stayed in the ground, choosing to burrow rather than roost. Though they do go in the trees to hunt, it seems. They have thicker scales with more muted colors and very dim lights. I can really only assume these dim lights evolved so the snakes can't blind each other in the tunnels, as the lights in the other species are quite bright. Whilst on the land of this tribe, one can easily strain their ear and hear the telltale sound of one of these funny little guys burrowing along in the ground, making a grating noise. Unlike the other tribes, this tribe prefers to keep their young away from the hunt until they are about half grown. Up until that point, one can sometimes glimpse a small snake being herded by a few larger snakes into the burrow, and then buried whilst the rest go off to hunt. It's quite hilarious, if I may say so myself. They don't seem to be bothered by the burying as much as being left behind by the larger snakes. It's really rather very amusing. One must remind themselves not to laugh while observing the snakes. They are a rather skittish species after all, and I do believe they would run away if given the opportunity. I've left a few assistants on this planet to continue observation duty, and I'm receiving more information as each day passes. Once I return to continue my personal investigations, I will most likely provide all of you with an update. If I remember, that is. The planet generally has quite a lot of potential, especially for my more violent assistants. It could provide them with a proper place to vacation and indulge in their natural hunting instincts. And not to worry, I'm not concerned about leaving them here at all. The planet should be worried about being left alone with some wild assistants. I am excited to learn more, eventually. I'm sure the natural resources here are, at the very least, could be of use if I found myself bored of the fauna and the research to be done. While these personnel records are inconclusive and annoyingly vague, I do hope to learn more about these places and inform you all with more details when I can. It is my intention to go back to both at some point and update my understanding, then update all of you. Please do give me time to do that, however, as I have to prepare myself with the proper gear and materials for both trips, both of which are going to be extremely long and take time to put together a record for. I hope to create slightly shorter separate records on both of these at a later date, so please stick around for when that becomes a possibility. There will sadly not be a ball after this record either, as I have some very exciting projects to work on and some new people to work on introducing to all of you. That is, after they're settled into the space station. I want to thank you all very much for your patience in creating these records, as I am a bit of a procrastinator, and I have not been working on them at all, let's be honest, but I am back. I am back with full force. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Obelisk of Malice, out.